Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are, whenever you are watching this video. It is Odessa. I am your doctorate of natural wellness, natural medicine, womb wellness coach. And today I want to talk with you all about the idea of self awareness and repetition and what we do repetitively and the habits that it creates and the patterns that it creates and the circumstances that it brings us to and leaves us in. So, the importance of being aware of what's happening to you, the reason why it's so imperative, starts obviously from the beginning, right? You knew you had a problem. Oftentimes, we either feel that something is off. I know for myself, I'm hyper aware of what's happening in my body. And I remember having a stretching session. And the experience that I had in the stretch was like, whoa, something is not right in my body. And I remember going to my doctor and having this conversation with her. And she was like, I'm not sure. And I just kept on insisting, I said, something is not right. I know how this usually feels and this is not right. So it starts off like this. So if do you feel anything coming up for you in your physical body? Do you have a family history of having illnesses, right? Like some women experience, high blood pressure and fibroids. Some people have diabetes running in their family, right? Like, do you have a family history of these issues? Um, have you been to see your doctor? Have you had a conversation with your doctor about it? So I started off by saying that we will feel something is off in our body. And sometimes we will answer that call or sometimes we won't. And so if you do have an issue and you feel like something is wrong, or you're realizing my cycle is off, or I'm bleeding too heavily, or I haven't been able to conceive and it's been more than 12 months, it's been more than 2 years. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I think I have endometriosis. I think I'm concerned. I have all of these different kinds of concerns. Then, it's important to have that conversation with your doctor. Now, when you have that conversation with your doctor, is it a vague conversation? You know what I mean? Often it's like, well, we had a conversation and they did a couple of blood tests and they said that everything is okay. So that's what it is. Right. Or did you have that conversation with your doctor and say, okay, well, what did you test? And, are my levels low? Are my levels high? Do these symptoms correspond to this? You know what I mean? I've done some research to see. So this is another kind of conversation that you can have with your doctor. And then there's also knowing you have a problem, and then going the length to find out exactly what it is. But the whole point is that you are now feeling it. We have arrived at the point now where this is in your awareness. Whatever the issue is that you are now required to care for, more meticulously, it's here and it's starting to interrupt your daily living activities. Okay. How many times a day do you think about this issue? How often do you think about this issue? What is the severity of this issue? What is the priority of this issue? You know what I mean? Like, are you sitting down at your work desk typing all day, whether it's in your home or at your work office, on the job and location, but are you experiencing, you know what I mean, these cramps while you're sitting down there? Are you completely, you know, tied to the chair, tethered to the chair because you can't move right now because you're anticipating your menstrual cycle is coming and you know that you're going to have problems? You know what I mean? Do you go through a lot of different levels of pain? You know what I mean? Are you experiencing pain and discomfort based off of the cysts that you have, the ovaries that you have? You know what I mean? Have you had a miscarriage that led in a therapeutic abortion that is leaving you with adhesions and scars and anxiety? Are you experiencing low AMH. You know what I mean? Like, we have issues. Are you experiencing low AMH levels? And now, you're concerned about your ovarian reserves. You know what I mean? If you're even able to have your own child, you know what I mean? And now need to consider egg donation. Like, there's so many different things. Are your fibroids bigger than you actually anticipated? What is going on in your life right now? How many hours a day is this problem taking up space for you? How many hours in the evening time, does it affect how you're sleeping? Can you not sleep on your belly? Can you not sleep on your back? You know what I mean? Are you irritable? Do you have conversations with the loved ones around you and you're in full mood swing because, your hormones all over the place and you haven't been able to get you haven't been able to get them in control, right? How many days off are you taking? Right? Because you can't stand, because you're not able to function. How many pills are you taking? Right? Like, let's open this up, this self-awareness. Like, we need to become self-aware and then refine this revision to look at these repetitive thoughts. One coach, I really love her name is Lisa Angel Smith, and she says, food takes years to kill you, but it takes only months to heal you. Right? So we have these habits and these patterns that we perpetuate based off of, our families, our parents who taught us how to care and groom for ourselves. They showed us, this is what we eat. You've gone into the world and you've started to mark your own place in the world and you've picked up these habits. You bleach. In the Caribbean, we say bleaching is when you stay up all night, you're doing all the different things, you're partying, you're with your friends, you're reading, you're watching TV, whatever it is. You know what I mean? You don't eat properly. You don't eat breakfast. You might eat, a bagel in the afternoon, at night. You're on coffee all day long. Like, look at these things that we're doing. It takes years to build up these habits. It's like sediment, you know what I mean? Like, I remember in grade 10, we used to do archaeological drawings. At one point, I thought I was going to be an architectural drawer, an engineer. So we were, like slicing the house or slicing, the ground, the sediment, and then looking at the different layers. You know what I mean? You got your cement, you got your pebbles, you got your gravel, you got your soil, you know what I mean? You got all these different layers, guys. I probably didn't name all the layers properly, but I think you can follow me. Right? And so, your condition that you've been living with, you've been adding on layers into it because remember, you first had that twinge, you know what I mean? Of, oh, I think something might be wrong, but you continue to do what you had to do and you adjust. And that's one thing the body does. The body absolutely will adjust around any problem that you give it, any issue that you shoot the body, any condition that arrives in the body's like, hey, what's up, swerve, right? And it's going to do what it needs to be able to continue to function. Even if it's not at its optimum, it's going to do its best. It's going to rob Peter to pay Paul, right? And so your condition has this first layer of showing up in your consciousness, and your initial response is to ignore it. And as you move on, the severity of it makes you realize that it's now a priority because you are not able to get pregnant. You are not able to get your periods under control. Your emotional landscape is a mess and you don't have good relationships with people, right? Now, to be able to address this, we need to look at these repetitive habits that you have, right? Because you've been building up upon them every day. It's the small details. It's Virgo moon today, y'all. So we're talking about Virgo things, right? It's the small details that build up, right? And create and support the larger whole. When we talk about seeing the iceberg and seeing the top of the iceberg, but not knowing what's happening underneath, it's the details that are going to connect all of the pieces together. And so if you yourself are not paying attention to these repetitive habits, what are you thinking? What were you feeling? What was the motivation behind you reaching for that food that you know is going to create the gas, heartburn, and the bloating, right? Like, what were you doing at work? What is the habit between leaving work and getting home that you end up going here or doing things or taking these particular things? You know what I mean? That you're in these particular areas with these people, or that you feel exacerbated. Like, what is it that you're doing? Your situation needs a radical change of these repetitious habits that you have, because they've built up over time and they have a case. They're like, no one stopped you. No one has stopped us. No one intervened with us. You all asked me a couple of questions. I told you what I was doing. I've been here doing my thing, and now I'm having a great time, but you're telling me you're uncomfortable, right? You're telling me that I'm creating dis-ease and discomfort in your body. Like, how dare we, right? After allowing ourselves to let these things happen to us and not really inquire. And so our repetitious habits need radical change, because if not, what happens is we stay stuck. We stay stuck in the space that we're in, and the repetitious habits don't actually move us along. Repeating something is how you learn. I remember when I was taking my phytotherapy program, my teacher, Nicole, she used to say, to learn is to repeat. She would say it in French, apprendre c'est la répétition. To learn something is to repeat. And so that's what we do. So what have you learned? And what do you need to radically change because it hasn't been helping you, right? We need radical change for you to be able to feel an increase in your libido, for you to stop, experiencing vaginal itching and vaginal dryness. You need a radical change in what you've been eating. You need a radical change in the products that you've been using. What kind of toxic things are you putting into your body that you knew about, that said, okay, these kind of things are known to potentially cause these issues, and they're known to contribute to these health problems. But you made the decision to let them continue to congregate because this is what you buy, this is what you use, this is who you are, this is what you do. Okay? Like, if you are completely stressed out, then your, repetitious habits, you know what I mean, of putting yourself in these stressful habits of, getting yourself riled up for causes and concerns that don't need your input. You know what I mean? Your repetitious habits of needing to do everything and needing to be everywhere for everyone, but not able to take care of yourself, right? This is what we need to address when we're looking at our repetitious habits. So I want you to think about that. When I work with my clients, I'm sitting here chilling, so this is what it looks like. When I work with my clients, I walk through what I call a MAP process. And I call this a MAP process because it is a multidimensional awareness and assessment protocol. And I really, really love talking about this process. I love walking people through this process because it helps you to get an idea of what is happening to you, not just physically. Not just I have these fibroids, not just I have a hypothyroid, not just, you know what I mean, I have a problem with my ovaries. It's okay, physically, this is happening to me. Emotionally, this is how I'm living and this is how I'm responding to my environment. Mentally, I'm thinking like this, and all of this is based off of how I'm feeling and what's happening in my body. And spiritually, these are the experiences that I'm having. Now, all of them will manifest in the physical body. The physical body will not manifest in all levels of your being. But when you can clearly identify the different layers of who you are, and then start to, draw those lines of reference and build those bridges, of, okay, connection. This is how this happened, and so I'm here. And this is how this happened, and so I'm here. And so this begins to, prepare us for what's to come, because the foundation isn't just based off of a quick assessment and a blood test, right? We're looking at you. We're looking at your whole being. We're looking at everything that went into creating you and who you are right now, and how that in and of itself is affecting your health, because it all matters. One of the biggest issues repeatedly that I hear from women is the level of accountability they are unable to maintain when it comes to walking through this process. And that's crucial, because this is not your quick fix pill thing. You need to be able to maintain what you started and do what is needed for the body, right, to get into its rhythm and catch its alignment and take off and continue on, right? You can't get like a 1-2 thing going and then fall off. Like it's not going to work like that. Okay. So walking through the process helps you to discover, by these questions that I'm asking and reflective exercises that you're doing. Okay. And this is all in preparation for our time together. So your map process is crucial to helping you set that compass, because as you're moving forward, you understand what your why is, you understand why you're on this healing journey, and you understand how you can support yourself physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually as you're working on your womb wellness, as you're working on your hormones, as you're trying to prepare your body for pregnancy, as you're working towards avoiding, these surgeries that are being offered to you, as you're striving to take yourself off of the medication that you've been taking. All of these things are what we're considering. Just by doing the work, one of my clients, within the first 2 weeks, I just remember her saying, like, just first of all, just having a conversation with her, watching her and listening, she was a completely different person. She was not in the same emotional space that she was in just by the first 2 weeks. And for me, that's the MAP process. That's after you've sat down and you've started asking yourself these questions. You may not have answered all of them, but you've begun reflecting on where you are and how you got there, and what situations or circumstances and who was implemented, and how the pieces begin to come together, you know what I mean, and how you always respond and why this triggers you. Like, I really love this. I really, really love this, because I think that this really gives you the opportunity to cultivate your own healing. You know what I mean? So in 2 weeks, to come back and to say that, to first of all look energetically different, right? To be in an emotionally different place, because you don't respond to your environment the same way, because you don't have the same loyalties to the relationships and the circumstances that you've been holding on to. You know what I mean? Like, within the first 2 weeks of just setting up the compass, of setting those foundations by processing your map, she's lost 5 pounds in those 2 weeks, without even engaging in the herbs. You know what I mean? Without fully doing all of the actual work. Psychologically, she was feeling safer, because that's another issue. Oftentimes, when we're feeling trauma, when we've experienced trauma, be it in the forms of illness, of disease, of abusive relationships, of partners, of parents, circumstances that leave us feeling vulnerable, there's a level of fear that we have, and we don't feel safe in our bodies. So we're always searching for levels of safety. And if you don't feel safe in your body, you can do all of the external work, but you're going to sabotage it, because when you come home to roost, you can't settle. Your nervous system is still, totally like shook. Something pushes you out of the comfort that you're trying to develop for yourself. And so you have to start the whole process again. And so for her to come back and say to me, like, wow, like, just in those first couple of weeks, she's seeing things that she hadn't been able to see before. Like for me, it's just beautiful. So recognizing the small repetitious patterns that bring you to the point that you are in, and making the decision to create radical change, right? And changing those particular habits. You know what I mean? Her menstrual cycle was better, her bowels were better, her skin was better. You know what I mean? The body doesn't require a lot to change, but we require a lot to, make the changes because of our own habits. These same simple, repetitious habits that are going to keep you stuck, or they're going to move you along out and into the next phase of where you need to be. right? And she couldn't see the potential. Even though this client signed up to work with me, signed the contract, we started the process, you know what I mean? Like, and she knew what she was getting herself into. She just didn't see the potential until she started to see the results. And the results came from that level of self-awareness of like, what am I doing? What have I done? You know what I mean? Like, what is the geographical contour? What is a contour of who I am, of what is around me that has created the environment, right? And so she didn't see the potential before, but she did now, and she was encouraged to dig deeper. She was starting to see the connection. She was having better conversations with her doctor, right? And these simple habits were starting to create newer, what we would call maybe neural pathways, as they would say in NLP or hypnosis. But even just in general, it's starting to create these new habits, because it takes 21 days minimum, 90 days on a very consistent schedule, and sometimes even longer, to instill new thought patterns, new habits, new ways of being. And so this is what I want to encourage you to do. I want you to consider, what is it that you've been doing? Yes, okay, you are dealing with, repetitive, recurrent miscarriages. You know what I mean? Like, you have experienced, levels of pain, unknowable or unreachable. Sorry, I was just thrown off there by the call coming in. But your cysts, you know what I mean, are hurting. You're miserable, your mood swings, all of these things. What have you done to contribute? Let's look at that. Take a moment, look at that. Now, if you are someone who is on this journey and you need some help and some support, and you're looking for, a place, a person, an experience where you can address your hormonal issues, your womb wellness issues, I want to invite you to hit me up in my DMs, and let's start a conversation and see if my self-care and feminine healing program is something that could be of service for you. All right. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you. I want you to be well. Take care. Bye-bye.